Good day, everyone. We are about to discuss the gene therapy and its prevalence in daily life. We are the reporters, Crystalline Santos, yours truly, Crystalline Barcon, and Kristen Gain Momo. This is our table of contents. First topic is the discussion about the gene therapy itself, and this will be discussed by Miss Crystalline Santos. Second topic is prevalence of gene therapy in daily life, and I will be the one to discuss this. Third is the conclusion about the topic, and this will be discussed by Miss Kristen Gain Momo. Before the proper discussion, let me ask you some questions, and I hope that you can try to put yourselves in the situation. Try to contemplate and have your answers in your mind. Imagine yourself being a parent of a young child suffering from a horrible disease in which you now know to be genetically inherited. This disease is caused from the genes that you and your partner passed on to your child. Now let's say you can treat this disease or may even be able to cure your child of this disease by altering, modifying, or replacing the genes that cause this disease through a process called gene therapy. Would you do it? I think most of us would answer yes. The option of being able to help our child several years ago may have seemed possible. Genetic research has made giant leaps over the past decade, and now the idea of gene therapy is a reality. Through gene therapy, it is possible to treat and elevate genetic diseases and mutations. We now have the knowledge and the technology to treat ourselves, our children, and the future generations. In order to make an educated decision, one must be aware of gene therapy itself. When making such a decision of whether to use gene therapy or not, it will be beneficial to understand the technical aspects of gene therapy. It is also important to understand how gene therapy treats an individual, what it can be used to treat, and the previous trials and successes of the use of gene therapy, where a person may find it worthwhile to know how the public perceives gene therapy and the overall consensus on its usage. After obtaining all this knowledge, the decision of whether or not to use gene therapy should be able to be made confidently. Let us hear from Ms. Crystalline Santos to further discuss what gene therapy is.
So gene therapy is used for correcting faulty genes in order to cure or improve the body's ability to fight disease. It is basically the medical area that focuses on modifying the genetic material of cells to achieve a therapeutic impact or to heal disease by repairing or reconstructing damaged genetic material. It attempts to cure sickness or increase the body's ability to fight disease by replacing a damaged gene or adding a new gene. Gene therapy has the potential to treat cancer, cystic fibrosis, heart disease, diabetes, AIDS, and other disorders. It entails modifying the genes within your body's cells in order to treat or prevent diseases. Despite of the advantages of the gene therapy, there are also risks associated with it. A gene cannot be directly introduced to your cells. Rather, it must usually be supplied via a carrier known as a vector. So the most common gene therapy vectors are viruses because they can recognize certain cells and carry genetic material into the cell's genes. So the researchers are investigating several ways to do this, including first one is replacing mutated genes. Some cells become diseased because certain genes work incorrectly or no longer work at all. And replacing the defective genes may help treat certain diseases. Second one is fixing mutated genes. mutated genes that cause disease could be turned off so that they can no longer promote disease, or healthy genes that help prevent disease could be turned on so that they could inhibit disease. For the last one, making disease cells more evident to the immune system. In some cases, your immune system doesn't attack disease cells because it doesn't recognize them as intruders. Doctors could use gene therapy to train your immune system to recognize the cells that are a threat.
Thank you, Ms. Crystalline Santos. Now let us talk about the prevalence of gene therapy in daily life. When we say about prevalence of gene therapy in daily life, it means how often, how wide, how powerful, how generally useful gene therapy is in our daily lives. The goal of gene therapy is to correct the mutations that have occurred within the DNA of our living cells. In simple terms, DNA is the genetic material that contains the genes, nucleotide pairs, codons, and genomes. In order to treat the individual or correct the mistake, the identification and location of the genes causing the problem must be determined. So how does gene therapy being prevalent in daily life? Of course, because every day, people die due to some genetic diseases. Those who have these diseases are having gene therapy, hoping to recover from the pains and difficulties they are experiencing. I will be showing some proofs on how gene therapy is predominantly useful in our daily lives. I have a trivia here. 2017 was the year of gene therapy breakthroughs. It was a notable year for gene therapy. First such treatments in the US came to market this year after winning approval from the Food and Drug Administration. Meanwhile, researchers announced more miraculous cures of patients with rare and life-threatening diseases who were treated with experimental therapies. Gene-fixing treatments have now cured a number of patients with cancer and rare diseases. Decades in the making, gene therapy, the idea of modifying a person's DNA to treat disease, represents a major shift in medicine. Instead of just treating symptoms like the vast majority of drugs on the market, gene therapy aims to correct the underlying genetic cause of a disease. Doctors and scientists hope these treatments will be a one-shot cure. First is the sickle-cell cure. In March 2017, researchers announced that a teenage boy in France had been cured of sickle cell disease after receiving an experimental gene therapy developed by Bluebird Bio. Caused by a single genetic mutation, sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder that affects 100,000 people in the US and millions around the world. Scientists removed stem cells from the boy's bone marrow and modified them in the lab by introducing copies of a gene to prevent his red blood cells from becoming sickled. When the treated cells are infused back into his body, they began to make normal blood cells. More than 2 years after treatment, the patient has enough normal red blood cells to evade any side effects of the disorder. Second, cancer killers. In year 2017, the FDA approved 2 pioneering treatments, Kymriah and Yescarta, that use a patient's own immune cells to fight rare types of cancer. Called CAR-T therapies, these living drugs are made by extracting T cells from patients and genetically engineering them to go after and destroy cancer cells. The cells are then infused back into the body So far, these therapies are being tested only in a handful of lethal cancers as a last resort when more traditional treatments like chemotherapy don't work. Kymriah treats a bone marrow cancer that affects children and young adults. Yescarta treats a type of lymphoma. Some patients have had remarkable recoveries and remain in remission months or years later. Third is building new skin. When a bacterial infection threatened his life, a boy with a devastating connective tissue disorder called epidermolysis bullosa got new skin created with gene therapy. To make it, scientists extracted cells from a part of the child's body that wasn't blistered. They isolated skin stem cells and added copies of healthy version of the gene. They let these cells grow into small sheets and in a series of 3 surgeries, transplanted them onto the patient's body at a hospital in Germany. Researchers announced the groundbreaking skin graft in November 2017. The fourth one is restoring sight. In December 2017, the FDA approved the first gene therapy for an inherited disease. The treatment, called Luxturna, aims to correct a mutation responsible for a range of retinal diseases that make people gradually go blind. In human tests, the treatment has restored vision for more than 24 patients who were losing their sight. It isn't an outright cure because it doesn't give patients normal vision, and it's unknown yet how long the benefits last. The company that makes the therapy, Spark Therapeutics, said it won't be announcing its price until January 2017. Some analysts before have predicted it could cost $1 million or more. But currently, as what is shown on this slide, the price is about $425,000. So imagine how expensive it is. But of course, for those privileged ones, they would actually spend any amount of money just to possibly cure their diseases. The fifth one, for hemophilia. BioMarine is one company working on a gene therapy that replaces the faulty gene involved in the most common type of hemophilia, effectively curing the disorder. In December 2017, the company published early clinical trial results showing that 9 patients who received its therapy saw substantial increases in the blood clotting proteins absent in hemophilia. A year and a half after treatment, patients have had fewer bleeding issues and have been able to cut back on infusions of clotting factor. Meanwhile, a handful of patients with hemophilia B, a rarer form of the disease, are already experiencing amazing cures after one-time treatments. As seen on the slide, the common symptoms of hemophilia are bruising, nosebleeds, bleeding into joints, prolonged bleeding from cuts and injuries, bleeding of the mouth and gums, and blood in the urine or stool. I feel that gene therapy is one of the most amazing advances in the medical field. The thought of being able to correct the genetic mistakes and diseases that we have occurring in our cells is very outstanding. The thought of being able to eliminate disease is very important in the survival of our existence. The thought of being able to treat diseases with the hope of cures for such diseases as cancer, AIDS, PKU, and etc. should be thought of as a godsend. My feelings become clear when thinking of the possibilities of using gene therapy to better ourselves in the sense of creating the superhuman. I don't think that gene therapy should be used to alter our individual characteristics, for these characteristics make us different from each other and more or less cause us no pain or harm. Even though we have been given the abilities and knowledge to perform such advances, I believe a line has to be drawn to determine how far is too far. Now let's hear from Miss Kristen Gain Momo for the conclusion about gene therapy.
In conclusion, throughout the years, our technology has greatly increased in many ways. Gene therapy is just one of these many amazing advances. So gene therapy has the potential to treat, create, and possibly be destructive to those who receive the therapy. So many more trials and research still need to be done to ensure its safety and effectiveness. So the possibilities through the gene therapy may be endless. Decisions on how far the possibilities may strengthen must be decided on and therefore be made into law in order to protect ourselves in the future generation. The benefits of using gene therapy should not be overlooked, for it has the potential to make ourselves free of disease and thus will make the difference in life and death of our loved ones and ourselves.
Perfect! Thank you so much, Miss Christine. That is all for our presentation. We hope that you learned something from us. These are our references. And we are submitting this report to Ma'am Raquel Estrada. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and have a great day. Bye for now!